Chapter 1. The pack's children had made up songs about Sarah. Broken wolf, broken soul. Can't find her mate, can't be whole. Hide your bond and guard your heart, or the broken one will tear it apart. Their high, sweet voices carried across the training grounds, pausing only when their parents hushed them with nervous glances in Sarah's direction. 5 years had passed since she'd been poisoned, and she now kept to the edges of pack territory, moving through the forest like a ghost wrapped in shame. Even so, she couldn't hide entirely, and so mothers pulled their children closer when she passed, and unmated males looked through her as if she didn't exist. "Please," she whispered to the pack supply master, keeping her voice low. "Just a week's worth of rations for these herbs. They're good ones, feverfew and arnica, hard to find." The man didn't look at her directly. "Can't spare it, Broken. You're scaring off the others." Sarah glanced around the empty supply shed and said nothing. There were no others to scare off. There never were when she appeared, no matter how briefly. She pulled her hood lower, trying to hide the shame that was now her existence. She couldn't shift, couldn't bond, couldn't fulfill any role that mattered in pack hierarchy. She was tolerated only because her father still held rank, and even that wouldn't last forever. She'd made her home in a small cabin at the territory's edge, trading her knowledge of herbs and her skill with numbers for the bare minimum she needed to survive. It wasn't much of a life, but it was life, and some days that felt like victory enough. Today was not one of those days. She was making her way toward the forest edge, her meager supplies tucked safely in her satchel, when she heard the commotion near the pack house. A crowd had gathered around something, their voices tight with anger and fear. "I'm telling you, it was her." A woman's voice rose above the rest. "Who else would do such a thing? The broken one will be the death of us all if we don't act." Sarah's blood went cold. She knew that voice, Mara, the Gamma's mate, a sharp-faced woman who had been calling for Sarah's banishment since the day the corruption was discovered. Mara's youngest son had been born sickly, failing to shift on his 13th birthday, and she'd somehow convinced herself that Sarah's presence was to blame, as if being broken were contagious. "We should have driven her out years ago," Mara continued, her voice growing shriller. "Now look what's happened. Little Emma, attacked in the woods last night. Claw marks all over her. Something feral did that." Sarah's stomach dropped. She'd heard nothing about Emma, had been nowhere near the training grounds where the young wolves practiced. But the crowd was already murmuring agreement, fear overriding logic. She started to back away, but it was too late. Mara's sharp eyes found her in the crowd, and her face twisted with vindictive satisfaction. "There!" she shrieked, pointing directly at Sarah. "There's the broken one herself. She did this. She's so twisted with corruption, she attacked a child." The crowd turned as one, and Sarah found herself surrounded by a sea of hostile faces. "I didn't," she started, but her words were lost in the angry shouts. Strong hands seized her arms before she could think to run. The pack's head enforcer wouldn't meet her eyes as he bound her wrists with silver-lined restraints. "Sorry, Sarah," he muttered, "but there's been a formal complaint made. I have to take you before the Council of Alphas for judgment." "But I didn't do anything," she whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. "Please, you know I wouldn't." "Do I?" He glanced at her face, and she saw the doubt there. "Can't say I know what a broken wolf might do. Never seen one before you." Behind him, Mara smiled with savage satisfaction. "Justice at last," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "The High Alpha will know how to deal with creatures like this one." As they dragged her toward the waiting vehicle, Sarah caught a glimpse of Emma being helped into the pack house. The girl's wounds were real, angry claw marks across her shoulder. But Sarah could also smell something else beneath the blood and fear. Rogue scent. Wild and wrong. But by then it was too late for truth to matter. It always was when you were broken. Chapter 2. The transport to the council's stronghold was cramped with prisoners, thieves, rogues, and oath-breakers who whispered in their chains. Sarah shrank into a shadowed corner, her hood drawn low, listening. "Heard the High Alpha grows more ruthless," muttered a scarred rogue. "All on account of his sisters." "Poor she-wolves," sighed a former pack healer. "Fading like they're being drained of life. New claw marks every morning, though they never leave their quarters." "Curse," hissed the thief. "What else? Remember the Shadow Ridge beta who tried to help them? Vanished. The witch doctor too. People don't dare anymore. The High Alpha offers any reward," the woman whispered. "But what good's a reward if you never return?" Sarah's mind began to race. 5 she-wolves growing weaker each day, people disappearing when they tried to help, and an alpha desperate enough to promise any reward. A plan began to form in her mind, desperate and dangerous, and perfectly suited to someone who had nothing left to lose. The council stronghold loomed before them like a fortress of ancient stone, its towers piercing the sky like claws. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as they were herded through iron gates and stone corridors. They reached the great hall, the Hall of the Moon Tree, one of the guards called it, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The vast chamber was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by flickering torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. But at the center of the hall grew something extraordinary, a massive tree with silver bark and leaves that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Its branches stretched nearly to the vaulted ceiling, and fruit like captured moonlight hung heavy from its boughs. "Beautiful, isn't it?" the healer whispered. "The High Alpha's sacred tree. They say his power flows from its roots. He guards it more fiercely than his own life." Reluctantly, Sarah tore her gaze away as the prisoners were arranged before the throne. "Do you covet my moon tree, Oathbreaker?" The High Alpha's voice cut the air like a blade. On his dark throne sat a man carved from violence, broad-shouldered, scarred, silver threading his black hair, eyes like molten amber. At his feet lay 5 she-wolves, pale and worn, like flowers left too long without water. Sarah forced her voice steady. "No thief could uproot such a tree, Alpha. It would take an army." The High Alpha's mouth twitched. "And yet you stand accused of attacking a child. Your tongue will not spare you. Tell me your name." "They call me the Broken One, Alpha," she said, chin lifting. "And I am no criminal. If words cannot save me, perhaps my actions will." His eyes narrowed. "The Broken One. Why so?" She ignored him, seizing the moment. "I have heard of your sister's affliction." The hall grew still. The High Alpha leaned forward, menace sharpening his voice. "Have you now? Then answer me properly. Why do they call you broken? What corruption do you hide?" The command brooked no refusal. With trembling hands, Sarah pushed back her hood and met his gaze directly. Gasps swept the hall. Courtiers shrank back. A woman whimpered. But the High Alpha's eyes widened, not with horror but with something else. "Recognition? Impossible. You bear no mark," he said slowly, his voice gone quiet. "Yet I can sense it. Your wolf is severed." "Yes, Alpha," she straightened, "which is why I have nothing left to lose. I offer myself to discover what afflicts your sisters." "In exchange for?" "Freedom and the favor you promised the others," Sarah replied. His eyes flared with dangerous light. "Your freedom should be favor enough. With respect, Alpha, I risk my life. Others vanished attempting this, which is why none dare try now." The hall fell silent except for the crackling of torch flames. The High Alpha leaned forward in his throne, and for a moment Sarah thought he might order her execution on the spot. "Very well," he said. 3 nights starting tonight. Solve the mystery, and you shall have freedom and any favor you desire. Fail, and I execute you as planned for the crime you're accused of." The moon tree shimmered faintly, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. Around the throne, the 5 she-wolves watched with eyes like dying embers. "I accept," Sarah said, and her voice did not waver. The High Alpha studied her with those burning amber eyes. "What is your true name, Broken One?" Sarah hesitated. Names held power among shifters, especially true names given at birth under the full moon. "Seraphina," she said quietly. "My name is Seraphina." Something flickered across the High Alpha's features. Surprise, perhaps, or something deeper. "Then, Seraphina," he said, her name rolling off his tongue like a prayer or a curse, "let us see if you are as brave as you are foolish." He gestured to the guards. "Take her to the sisters' quarters, and watch her closely. If she harms even one hair on their heads, I will make her death last 1,000 years." As the guards led her away, Sarah caught one final glimpse of the High Alpha. He was staring at the moon tree with an expression of profound longing, his hand pressed against his chest as if nursing an old wound. And for just a moment, she could have sworn she felt something, a phantom echo of what a mate bond should feel like, tugging at the severed space where her wolf should be. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Chapter 3. Sarah was lodged in a small chamber beside the sisters' rooms, given only a narrow cot and a single candle. "I'll be watching you," one guard growled, taking up post outside her door. "One wrong move toward the she-wolves, and broken or not, I'll end you myself." But the 5 sisters themselves seemed too weary to care about Sarah. They lay on their beds like wilted flowers, their lovely faces pale and drawn. Though near midnight, the eldest sister, a dark-haired beauty named Isla, rose as if sleepwalking. She drifted towards Sarah with a gentle smile, bearing a steaming cup. "A warm drink for our guest," she murmured, her voice distant and dreamy. The kindness in her voice nearly undid Sarah, but memory flared. Another cup, another night. Lioness poisoned tea and false maternal blessing. "Thank you, Lady Isla," Sarah said carefully. When the sister turned away, she poured the liquid into a crack between the floorboards and feigned sleep. The guard accepted his own cup from another sister and soon collapsed into deep snores. An hour passed. Then movement. The sisters rose together, not in nightgowns now, but in hunting leathers and boots made for running. Wordless, they pressed upon an ordinary section of wall, which shimmered and opened to reveal a hidden passage. Sarah shook the guard, but he was lost in drugged slumber. With no choice, she followed the sisters into the dark. The passage wound through the stronghold's foundations, then opened into a tunnel that descended deep into the earth. The air grew cold and damp, smelling of stone and something wild. Something that made her severed wolf stir restlessly in the hollow space where it should have been. The tunnel seemed endless, but at last moonlight broke ahead. Impossible moonlight, for they were deep underground. Sarah emerged into a vast cavern whose ceiling glittered with crystals that cast silver light like stars. And there, in the center of the cavern, was a forest. Not a cave formation or underground garden, but a true forest. Ancient trees with massive trunks, their branches heavy with silver leaves. The ground was carpeted with moss that glowed faintly, and the air hummed with magic so thick Sarah could taste it on her tongue. The sisters moved into the forest without hesitation, running now, their movements fluid and graceful. Sarah followed at a distance, her heart pounding. The forest opened into a clearing where firelight blazed. And there, gathered around roaring bonfires, were wolves. Dozens of them. Hundreds, perhaps. All in their beast forms. Massive creatures with fur ranging from midnight black to snow white, their eyes glowing with intelligence and something else. Something feral and intoxicating. Music filled the air, not instruments, but howls. A symphony of voices rising and falling in perfect harmony, calling to something primal and ancient. The sisters shifted mid-stride, their human forms melting away into sleek wolves that joined the gathering. They howled with the others, their voices blending into the chorus. Sarah pressed herself against a tree trunk, watching in amazement and growing horror. This wasn't a curse. This was a ritual. The sisters were coming here willingly. Does the little broken one need an invitation? The voice came from directly beside her, smooth and tinged with dark amusement. Sarah spun to find a man. No, not quite a man. His eyes were too bright, shifting from gold to green like sunlight through leaves. His features were sharp and wild, with something untamed lurking beneath the surface. I have no wolf to shift," Sarah stammered, pulling back instinctively. "Then you'll have to stay human," he said, extending one clawed hand toward her. "Unless you prefer to watch from the shadows all night." Every instinct screamed danger, but the sisters were already deep in the forest, and she had to understand what was happening here. She ignored his offered hand, couldn't bear the thought of anyone feeling her touch and sensing her brokenness, and stepped past him into the clearing. "Cautious little thing, aren't you?" he said, following her with predatory grace. "I am Kieran, Alpha of the Wild Court, and you are trespassing in my territory." "The Wild Court," Sarah repeated, her blood running cold. She'd heard whispers of the Wild Court. Rogue wolves who rejected pack bonds and hierarchy, who lived by instinct and violence alone. They were said to be dangerous, unpredictable, more beast than shifter. "The one and only," Kieran said with a sharp smile. "And these lovely she-wolves come to us every night, drawn by the call of the wild. They run with us, hunt with us, let their beasts rule them as nature intended." "They're being compelled," Sarah said, watching the sisters dance and howl with the wild wolves. "This isn't natural, isn't it?" Kieran tilted his head. "They come of their own accord. Every night, they answer the call. Their wolves crave what we offer. True freedom from the chains of civilization and pack politics." Sarah studied the sisters more closely. Their movements were fluid, joyful even. But there was something wrong in their eyes, a glazed quality, as if they were trapped in a waking dream. "Why are they so weak?" she demanded. "If this brings them such freedom, why are they dying?" Because human bodies aren't meant to shift so often, Kieran said casually. The transformation takes a toll, but they cannot resist the call. Their wolves are addicted to the wild magic here. Horror shot through Sarah. You're killing them. They're killing themselves, Kieran corrected. I merely offer what their wolves desire. It's not my fault their human halves can't keep up. Sarah wanted to grab the sisters to shake them awake, but she knew it would be useless. Whatever magic was at work here, it had them completely enthralled. How do I break the compulsion? She asked. Kieran laughed, the sound echoing through the clearing. You think you're the first to ask? Others have come before you, demanding answers, threatening consequences. None succeeded. What happened to them? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. They joined us, Kieran said, gesturing to the wild wolves dancing around the fires. Not as shifters, of course. But the wild court has many uses for clever humans. Sarah's stomach turned. The missing people, the beta, the witch doctor, all the others who'd tried to help. They were here somewhere. Transformed or trapped or worse. I need to bring the sisters back, she said firmly. Then make me an offer, Kieran said, his eyes glinting with dangerous interest. Everything in the wild has a price. What will you trade for their freedom? Sarah's mind raced. She had nothing, no wolf, no power, no pack backing. What could she possibly offer that a wild court alpha would want? Run with me, Kieran said, stepping closer. Just once. Let me see what a broken wolf looks like when she tries to embrace the wild. I can't shift, Sarah said desperately. I told you. I know what you told me, he interrupted. But I wonder, is it that you can't shift or that you're too afraid to try? The question hit her like a physical blow. She'd never tried to shift after the poisoning. The pack healers had told her it was impossible, that her wolf was severed, gone forever. But what if? One run, Kieran offered. From here to the heart of the forest and back. If you can do it without shifting, without calling to your wolf at all, I'll tell you how to break the compulsion. And if I fail? Sarah asked. Kieran's smile widened, showing too many teeth. Then you stay here with me. Forever. Around them, the wild wolves howled their approval. The sisters danced on, oblivious to the bargain being struck. And Sarah, who had nothing left to lose, took a deep breath and nodded. I accept. Chapter 4. Sarah stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart hammering against her ribs. The wild wolves had formed a circle around her and Kieran, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. The rules are simple, Kieran announced, his voice carrying across the gathering. Run from here to the Heartstone at the forest center and back. No shifting allowed. Just human speed and human endurance. And if I call to my wolf accidentally? Sarah asked, though the question felt absurd. She had no wolf to call. Kieran's smile was sharp as broken glass. Then you lose, and you stay with us forever. But I don't think that will be a problem for you, will it, broken one? The words stung, but Sarah forced herself to focus. She could do this. It was just a run through the forest. She'd spent years navigating the wilderness alone. This would be no different. Except everything about this place felt wrong. The air hummed with wild magic, and the silver moss beneath her feet seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. The trees whispered secrets in voices that sounded almost like howls. Whenever you're ready, Kieran said, gesturing toward the forest path. Sarah took a deep breath and ran. The forest blurred around her as she pushed her human body to its limits. Branches whipped at her face and arms, roots threatened to trip her, but she kept running. The path wound through ancient trees, their trunks so massive that 3 people couldn't have circled them with linked arms. And then she felt it. A stirring in the hollow space where her wolf should have been. Not the wolf itself, but an echo of what once was, a phantom sensation like an amputated limb that still ached in the rain. No, she thought desperately. Not now. But the wild magic was seeping into her, calling to something deep within her bones. The severed bond that had been poisoned and broken was trembling, resonating with the ancient power of this place. Sarah stumbled, catching herself against a tree trunk. Her vision swam, and for a moment she could have sworn she saw silver fur rippling across her arms. But when she looked down, there was nothing. Just her own human skin. Keep running, she told herself. Don't stop. Don't think about it. She pushed off the tree and continued deeper into the forest. The path grew narrower, darker, until she could barely see more than a few feet ahead. And then the trees opened into a small clearing. At its center stood a massive stone covered in ancient carvings, spirals and moons and wolves locked in eternal chase. The heart stone. Power radiated from it in waves that made her teeth ache. Sarah reached out to touch it, fulfilling the bargain's requirement. And the moment her fingers brushed the stone's surface, everything changed. The world exploded into sensation. She could smell everything. The damp earth, the wild wolves miles behind her, the sisters' fear beneath their compulsion, and something else. Something that smelled like home and safety, and everything she'd lost when her wolf was severed. Her vision sharpened until she could see every detail of the forest in perfect clarity. Her hearing expanded, catching whispers and heartbeats and the rustle of creatures in the undergrowth. And in the hollow space inside her, something stirred. Not her wolf. That was still gone, still severed. But something else. A wild thing with no name, drawn up from the depths by the Heartstone's magic. No, Sarah gasped, jerking her hand away from the stone. But it was too late. The wild magic had taken root, and it was growing. She ran back toward the clearing, terror lending her speed. Her body felt wrong now. Too strong, too fast, caught between human and something else. She could feel claws trying to push through her fingertips, feel her teeth elongating, feel for a rippling beneath her skin. But she wasn't shifting. Not truly. Whatever was happening to her, it wasn't a true shift. It was something broken and wrong, a corruption of the natural transformation. She burst back into the clearing where Kieran waited, and the wild court alpha's eyes widened with something that looked like genuine surprise. Fascinating, he breathed, studying her with predatory interest. You truly are broken, aren't you? Your wolf is gone, but the wild magic found something else in you. Something primal. Sarah fell to her knees, gasping for air. The sensations were fading now, the wild thing retreating back into the hollow space. But she could still feel it there, a presence where before there had been only emptiness. I made it, she panted. I touched the Heartstone and came back. I didn't shift. No, you didn't, Kieran agreed, circling her slowly. But you called to something, didn't you? I could feel it. The wild answered you, even without a wolf to channel it through. You said you'd tell me how to break the compulsion, Sarah said, forcing herself to stand despite her trembling legs. I completed your challenge. Kieran studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he smiled, and it was a terrible thing to see. I lied, he said simply. Sarah's blood turned to ice. You can't lie. Shifters can't. Can't we? Kieran interrupted. That's what the civilized packs teach, isn't it? That honor and truth are sacred to our kind. But we are the wild court, little broken one. We rejected those rules long ago. Horror crashed over Sarah as the wild wolves closed in around her, their eyes hungry and amused. You tricked me, she whispered. Of course I did, Kieran said, reaching out to cup her face with one clawed hand. She was too shocked to pull away. And now you're mine. Forever. The word echoed through the clearing, and Sarah felt something snap into place. A binding, a magical contract sealed by her acceptance of his challenge and her failure to win on his terms. No, she said, but her voice came out weak. The sisters will continue their nightly runs until their human bodies fail, Kieran continued, his tone almost conversational. And you will stay here with me, helping to draw more lost souls into the wild. That's the price of your interference. Sarah's mind raced. There had to be a way out. Some loophole, some escape. She thought back over everything Kieran had said, searching for. Wait. You said shifters can lie, she said slowly. That the wild court rejected the old rules. I did, Kieran confirmed, looking pleased that she was paying attention. But that means you might be lying now, Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. About me being bound to you. About everything. Kieran's smile faltered slightly. In fact, Sarah said, pushing to her feet, if the wild court can lie, then nothing you've said can be trusted. Not the terms of the bargain, not the binding, none of it. The wild wolves murmured uneasily. Sarah could feel the magic around her shifting, uncertain. The old packs have power because their words are bonds, she said, speaking not just to Kieran but to all the assembled wolves. When an alpha makes a promise, it becomes reality. But if the wild court can lie, then your words have no power. Your bargains mean nothing. Kieran's expression darkened with fury. Clever girl, he snarled. But you're still trapped here. Even without a binding, you can't find your way back without a guide. Then I'll find another way, Sarah said, backing toward the forest edge. She ran before he could stop her, plunging into the trees with no idea which direction led back to the tunnel. Behind her, She heard Kieran's roar of rage and the sound of dozens of wolves giving chase. But she also heard something else, a voice distant but clear, calling her name. Serafina. It came from deeper in the forest, pulling at something inside her. The wild thing that had awakened at the heart stone stirred in response. Against all logic, against all sense of self-preservation, Sarah turned toward the voice and ran. Chapter 5. Sarah ran toward the voice, her instincts screaming that this was madness. Behind her, the wild court's howls grew louder, closer. But the voice calling her name pulled at something deep inside, the wild thing that had awakened at the heart stone. Serafina, this way. She crashed through undergrowth, leaped over fallen logs, her human body moving with a speed and grace she'd never possessed before. The wild magic had changed something in her, even without a true shift. The forest opened abruptly into a clearing she hadn't seen before. And there, standing beside a pool of water that reflected the crystal stars above, was a wolf. Not one of Kieran's wild pack. This wolf was massive, with fur the color of midnight and eyes that glowed amber gold. Even in beast form, power radiated from him in waves that made the air shimmer. The wolf shifted, bones cracking and reforming, until a man stood before her. The High Alpha. You, Sarah breathed, shock stealing her words. He was bare-chested, his muscled form covered in scars that told stories of 100 battles. His amber eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her want to run and stay in equal measure. I've been searching for you all night, he said, his voice rough with frustration and something else. When I felt the wild magic surge, I knew something had gone wrong. How did you get here? Sarah demanded. How did you even know? The moon tree, he interrupted. It's connected to this place, to the wild court's magic. I've known about this cavern for months, but I couldn't find the entrance until tonight. Until you opened the path. Sarah's mind reeled. I didn't open anything. I followed your sisters. And in doing so, you weakened the barrier that kept this realm hidden. His expression was grim. The wild court has been drawing my sisters here, feeding on their wolves' energy. I've searched everywhere for the source, but they hid it well. The sound of pursuit grew louder. Kieran's pack was close now. We need to leave, the High Alpha said, reaching for her hand. Now, but Sarah pulled back. I can't. Not without understanding how to break the compulsion on your sisters. If I leave now, they'll keep coming here every night until they die, the High Alpha finished, his jaw tight. I know. Then you know I have to find another way. There is no other way, he growled with frustration. The wild court's magic is ancient primal. It calls to the beast in every shifter. My sisters answer because their wolves crave what it offers. Pure instinct without the burden of human consciousness. But there must be something, Sarah insisted. Some way to sever the connection. She stopped, the word hanging in the air between them. Sever. What is it? The High Alpha demanded, reading something in her expression. I know about severed connections, Sarah said slowly. My bond to my wolf was cut, poisoned. What if the same principle works in reverse? What if we can sever their connection to the wild magic? That would require a witch, the High Alpha said. Or someone with the knowledge of how to break magical bonds. Or someone who's already lived through it, Sarah countered. I survived having my wolf severed. I know what it feels like, how the bond breaks. Maybe I can use that knowledge. The High Alpha stared at her with something like wonder. You would risk helping them, even knowing what losing your wolf cost you. They don't deserve to die because of someone else's game, Sarah said firmly. A howl split the air, closer than before. Kieran's voice rang out through the trees. Come out, little broken one. You can't hide from me in my own territory. The High Alpha's body tensed, his eyes flashing with barely contained violence. He needs to die for this. No, Sarah said quickly. Killing him won't break the compulsion. The magic is tied to this place, not just to him. We need to understand how it works first. Then what do you suggest? The High Alpha asked, his voice tight with controlled fury. Sarah's mind raced. Kieran had said the sisters came of their own will, that their wolves craved the freedom the wild offered. But he'd also said others had tried to stop him and failed. The others who came before me, she said. The Beta, the witch doctor. Kieran said they joined his court. What if they're not dead? What if they're still here, trapped somehow? The High Alpha's eyes widened slightly. If we could free them, they might know how to break the compulsion. Exactly, Sarah said. And how do you propose we find them? He asked. This forest is massive, and we're being hunted. Sarah closed her eyes, reaching for the wild thing inside her, the presence that had awakened at the heart stone. It stirred in response, and suddenly she could feel them. Threads of human consciousness trapped in the forest, bound to the wild magic, but not fully consumed by it. "I can sense them," she whispered. "There are 3 of them, held in the northern part of the forest." The High Alpha studied her with an unreadable expression. "The wild magic claimed you, didn't it? When you touched the heart stone." "It tried," Sarah admitted. "But there was nothing for it to fully claim. My wolf is gone, remember? So it just filled the empty space with something else. Something that lets you sense the wild magic's prisoners," he said thoughtfully. "Apparently," Sarah said. Kieran's howl sounded again, and this time it was answered by dozens of others. The wild court was closing in from all sides. "We're surrounded," the High Alpha said, his body tensing for a fight. "Then we don't run," Sarah said, surprising herself with her own certainty. "We bargain." "The wild court can lie," the High Alpha said sharply. "You can't trust any deal they make." "I know," Sarah said, "but their lies are also their weakness. If their words have no power, then their magic has no true hold over anyone, not really. It's all illusion and intimidation." The High Alpha's eyes gleamed with dangerous approval. "You're clever. I'll give you that. Is that a compliment, Alpha?" Sarah asked, unable to stop herself. His lips curved in something that might have been a smile. "It's an observation. Don't let it go to your head." Before she could respond, Kieran emerged from the trees, his pack flowing around him like shadows. He'd shifted back to human form, his wild eyes fixed on Sarah with predatory interest. "Found you," he said with satisfaction. Then his gaze shifted to the High Alpha, and his smile widened. "And you brought company. How delightful." "Release my sisters from your compulsion," the High Alpha commanded, his voice carrying the full weight of his authority. "Now," Kieran laughed. "Or what? You'll kill me? Go ahead and try. But you should know, my death won't free them. The wild magic doesn't need me to sustain it. It will find another vessel, another Alpha to channel its call. Then we'll destroy the heart stone," Sarah said. Kieran's amusement faded. "You wouldn't dare. The wild magic would consume this entire forest, everything in it, including your precious sisters." "She's bluffing," one of Kieran's packmates said. But Sarah could see in Kieran's eyes that he wasn't sure. And uncertainty was a weapon she could use. "I touched the heart stone," she said, stepping forward. "The wild magic recognized me, claimed me even without a wolf to channel it through. That makes me connected to it in a way you can't predict or control." "Interesting theory," Kieran said, his voice carefully neutral. "It's not a theory," Sarah said. "I can feel it right now, pulsing through this forest. And I can feel the 3 people you've trapped, held in suspended states between human and beast. Release them, and I'll leave the heartstone intact." Kieran's eyes narrowed. "And if I refuse?" Sarah smiled, and it was a cold, dangerous expression she'd learned from watching Predators. "Then I'll find out what happens when someone broken tries to shatter the source of wild magic. Want to take that risk?" The clearing fell silent. The wild court pack shifted uneasily, looking to their Alpha for guidance. Finally, Kieran smiled, a genuine expression of respect. "You would have made an excellent addition to my court, little broken one. Very well. I'll release the trapped humans. But in exchange, you must promise never to return to this forest." "Done," Sarah said immediately. "And your Alpha must swear not to seek vengeance against me or my pack," Kieran added. The High Alpha's growl was low and dangerous, but Sarah placed a hand on his arm. "Agreed," she said. "As long as you release the sisters from their compulsion as well." "That I cannot do," Kieran said. "The compulsion is their choice, their wolves' desire for freedom. I merely provide the avenue. To break it, they must choose to reject the wild, and that choice must come from them." Sarah's heart sank, but she knew he was telling the truth this time. She could feel it in the way the wild magic hummed around them. It was an invitation, not a cage. "Then show us where the trapped ones are," she said. "Now," Kieran gestured to his pack, and 3 wolves stepped forward, shifting into human forms. Sarah recognized the Shadow Ridge Beta immediately. Older now, with wild eyes but human consciousness still intact. Beside him stood a woman covered in ritual scars and an elderly man with a healer's gentle bearing. "They're bound to my service," Kieran said, "but I release them into your custody. May they serve you better than they served me." The 3 humans blinked as if waking from a dream, confusion and relief warring on their faces. "Come," the High Alpha commanded them. "We're leaving." As they turned to go, Sarah felt Kieran's eyes on her back. "We'll meet again, Seraphina," he called after her. "The wild has claimed a piece of you. It will call you back eventually." Sarah didn't respond. She followed the High Alpha and the freed prisoners through the forest, back toward the tunnel entrance. But deep inside, in the hollow space where her wolf had been, the wild things stirred in agreement. Kieran was right. This wasn't over. Chapter 6. They emerged from the tunnel just as dawn broke over the stronghold. The freed prisoners stumbled into the morning light, blinking and disoriented. The High Alpha's guards immediately surrounded them, weapons drawn. "Stand down," the High Alpha commanded. "These people are under my protection." Sarah watched as the 3 former captives were led away to the healer's wing. The Shadow Ridge Beta, his name was Marcus, she learned, kept looking back at her with an expression of profound gratitude mixed with confusion. "You should rest," the High Alpha said, turning to her. "You've been awake all night." "So have you," Sarah pointed out. His lips twitched. "I'm used to it. You're not." "I need to speak with them," Sarah said, gesturing toward the prisoners. "They might know something about breaking the compulsion." "After you've rested," the High Alpha said firmly. "And after the healers have examined them. They've been trapped in the wild court for months. They need time." Sarah wanted to argue, but exhaustion was creeping over her now that the adrenaline had faded. Her legs felt like water, and her head swam with fatigue. "Fine," she conceded. "But I want to see them as soon as they're cleared." The High Alpha studied her for a long moment. "You risked your life tonight for wolves you don't even know." "Why?" Sarah met his amber gaze steadily. "Because no one deserves to be trapped. Not by poison, not by magic, not by anything." Something shifted in his expression, a softness that hadn't been there before. "What's your true connection to this, Seraphina? You're not just doing this for freedom or a favor. There's something personal driving you." She hesitated, then decided he deserved honesty. "I know what it's like to lose your wolf, to have that connection severed and be left hollow. Your sisters are losing themselves piece by piece every night. If I can help stop that, I will. Even though helping them won't restore your own wolf," he said quietly. "Even though," Sarah confirmed. The High Alpha reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and placed a hand on her shoulder. The touch sent a shock through her system. That same phantom sensation she'd felt before, the echo of a mate bond that shouldn't exist. "You're an exceptional person, Seraphina," he said. "I'm beginning to understand why the wild magic chose you." "No," he said. "No, I appreciate the honesty. It's rare." He turned back to the moon tree, his expression softening. "This tree was planted by my great-grandmother. She was a seer, gifted with visions of possible futures. She said it would protect our bloodline as long as we protected it. But lately, I've wondered if we've become so focused on protection that we've forgotten how to truly live." Sarah approached the tree slowly. Up close, she could see that its bark was covered in intricate carvings, names and dates, a family history written in silver. "Talk to your sisters," she said again. "Not as their alpha, but as their brother. You might be surprised by what you learn." The High Alpha nodded slowly. "And what about you? What have you learned from all this?" Sarah touched the moon tree's bark, feeling its magic pulse beneath her fingers. It was different from the wild magic. Gentler, more controlled, but no less powerful. "I've learned that sometimes the thing you think you've lost forever can come back in a different form," she said quietly. "My wolf is gone, but the wild magic filled that space with something new. It's not the same, but it's not nothing either. The wild marked you," the High Alpha said. "I can see it now, feel it. You're connected to that realm in a way that can't be severed." "I know," Sarah said. "Kieran was right. It will call me back eventually." "And will you answer?" he asked. Sarah met his amber eyes. "Not if I have a choice. Not if there's something worth staying for." The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken things. The High Alpha took a step closer, and Sarah's breath caught. "Seraphina," he began, but whatever he was about to say was interrupted by a guard rushing in. "Alpha, the sisters, they're gone." Chapter 7. The High Alpha moved with lethal speed, reaching the sisters' quarters before Sarah could fully process what was happening. She ran after him, her heart pounding. The room was empty, the windows thrown wide open. But there was no sign of forced entry, no struggle. The sisters had left willingly. "The tunnel," Sarah said immediately. "They've gone back to the wild court." It's still hours until midnight, the high alpha growled, checking the position of the moon through the window. They never go this early. Maybe our conversation pushed them, Sarah said, guilt twisting in her stomach. Maybe I made things worse. The high alpha's jaw clenched. Or maybe Kieran found a way to strengthen the compulsion. Either way, we need to get them back. Now, they raced through the corridors to the hidden passage. This time, Sarah could feel the wild magic pulsing through the tunnel like a heartbeat, calling to the presence inside her. It was stronger than before, more insistent. Something's changed, she said as they descended. The magic feels different. Hungrier. The wild cord is feeding, the high alpha said grimly. The more they consume, the stronger they become. If they fully claim my sister's wolves, there will be nothing left to save. They burst into the underground cavern to find it transformed. Where before there had been silver light and ethereal beauty, now the forest pulsed with raw, primal energy. The trees themselves seemed to writhe, their branches reaching like grasping hands. And in the center of it all, the sisters danced around the heart stone. But they weren't alone. Kieran stood beside the stone, his hands raised, channeling wild magic through the ancient monolith. The 5 she-wolves circled faster and faster, their movements becoming more frantic, more desperate. Kieran, the high alpha's voice boomed across the clearing. Release them. Kieran turned, his smile vicious. I'm not holding them, high alpha. They came to me, begged me to accelerate the transformation. They want to be free of their human halves forever. You're lying, Sarah said, stepping forward. But even as she spoke, she could feel the truth in his words. The wild magic wasn't forcing the sisters. It was answering their call. Am I? Kieran gestured to the dancing wolves. Ask them yourself. Oh wait, they can't hear you anymore. They're too far gone. The high alpha shifted in an explosion of power, his massive wolf form charging toward Kieran with murderous intent. But the wild cord alpha was ready. He shifted as well, meeting the attack with savage ferocity. Sarah ran toward the sisters, desperate to reach them, to shake them from their trance. But the moment she got close to the heart stone, the wild magic surged, wrapping around her like vines. The presence inside her, the wild thing that had awakened, rose to meet it. And suddenly Sarah could see what the sisters saw, feel what they felt. Pure, unbridled freedom. The weight of expectation and duty and pack hierarchy stripped away. Just the joy of running, hunting, existing as a wolf without apology or restraint. It was intoxicating, addictive. Everything she'd never been able to experience because her wolf had been severed. No, Sarah gasped, fighting against the pull. This isn't real freedom. It's consumption. But the wild magic whispered back, promising her everything she'd lost. You could shift, it said. Not as you were, but as something new. Something wild and whole. Let go. Let us fill the broken spaces. Sarah felt herself weakening, felt the temptation pulling at her soul. It would be so easy to surrender, to finally feel complete again. Then she heard a sound that cut through the magic like a blade. The high alpha's howl. Not of rage or violence, but of pure, devastating grief. She looked up to see him standing in human form again, bloodied from his fight with Kieran, staring at his sisters with an expression of such profound loss that it broke her heart. Please, he said, his voice raw. Don't leave me. I can't lose you too. The sisters faltered in their dance. For the first time since entering the trance, they seemed to hear him. I know I've been controlling, the high alpha continued, dropping to his knees. I know I've caged you with my fear, but you're all I have left. Our parents, our pack elders, they're all gone. You 5 are my only family. Isla shifted back to human form first, tears streaming down her face. Brother, she whispered. I'll do better, the high alpha said. I'll give you freedom within the pack. Hunting rights, territory to roam, whatever you need. Just don't choose the wild over me. Please. The other sisters began to shift back, the wild magic's hold weakening as their human consciousness reasserted itself. But Kieran wasn't finished. Noble words, high alpha, he snarled. But words are easy. Can you actually give them what they need? Or will you revert to your controlling ways the moment the danger has passed? He won't, Sarah said, pushing herself upright. Because I'll make sure of it. Everyone turned to look at her. The wild magic still clung to her, visible as a faint silver shimmer around her body. I'm connected to the wild now, she continued, walking toward the heartstone despite every instinct screaming at her to run. Kieran said I'd be called back eventually. So here's my offer. I'll serve as a bridge between the civilized packs and the wild court." "What are you talking about?" the High Alpha demanded. "The wild magic calls to wolves who feel trapped by pack structure," Sarah explained. "But what if there was a way to answer that call without losing yourself entirely? What if there was someone who understood both worlds?" She placed her hand on the heart stone, feeling its power surge through her. The wild thing inside her rose to meet it, and for a moment she stood at the precipice of transformation, of becoming something entirely new. "I'm already broken," she said. "Already between worlds. Let me be the bridge that keeps others from falling." Kieran studied her with newfound respect. "You would bind yourself to this place? Become a guardian of the boundary between wild and civilized? If it means preventing others from being consumed," Sarah said firmly. "Yes." "Serafina, no," the High Alpha said, moving toward her. "You can't." "I can," she interrupted. "And I will. But only if Kieran agrees to stop actively hunting for new converts. Let those who are truly called to the wild come freely, but don't send your magic out to entrap them." Kieran considered this for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Agreed. A guardian of the threshold is acceptable. Better than losing access entirely." "Then it's done," Sarah said. The moment the words left her lips, she felt the magic shift. The Heartstone's power flowed into her fully now, not consuming but integrating. The hollow space where her wolf had been filled completely with wild magic, and Sarah gasped as she felt something impossible happening. She was shifting, not into a wolf, not entirely, but into something between, something new. Silver fur rippled across her skin, her senses expanded beyond human limits, and she felt power thrumming through every cell of her body. When the transformation completed, she stood on two legs but with wolf ears, claws, enhanced strength and speed. She was neither fully human nor fully beast, but a perfect balance of both. "Impossible," Kieran breathed. "You're a threshold guardian," Sarah finished. "Neither wild nor civilized. Both and neither." The sisters stared at her in awe. The High Alpha looked stricken. "The binding is complete," Kieran said. "You're tied to this place now, guardian. You can leave, but you'll always hear the call. And you must return regularly to maintain the balance." Sarah nodded, understanding settling over her. This was her purpose now. Not to have a wolf, but to be something new, something that could protect others from losing themselves. "Take your sisters home," she told the High Alpha. "Their connection to the wild magic is severed. They're free." "And you?" he asked, his voice tight. "I'll be along shortly," Sarah said. "I need to understand my new role first." The High Alpha looked like he wanted to argue, but Isla placed a hand on his arm. "Let her do this, brother. She's given us a gift. Don't diminish it by treating her as something that needs protecting." After a long moment, the High Alpha nodded. He gathered his sisters and began leading them back to the tunnel entrance. But before he left, he turned back to look at Sarah one more time. The expression on his face was complex: grief, admiration, longing, and something else. Something that made the phantom mate bond sensation pulse stronger than ever. Then he was gone, and Sarah was alone with Kieran and the wild magic. "You've made a powerful binding," Kieran said. "Few could survive it. The wild magic respects strength above all else." "I didn't do it for respect," Sarah said. "I did it because no one else should have to lose themselves the way I almost did." Kieran smiled, and for the first time, it seemed genuine. "You'll make a better guardian than I ever was." The wild magic chose well. As Sarah stood in the heart of the underground forest, she felt her new form settling around her like a second skin. She wasn't broken anymore. She was something entirely different. And somehow, impossibly, she felt whole. Chapter 8. Sarah spent hours in the underground forest learning the boundaries of her new form. Kieran proved to be a surprisingly patient teacher, showing her how to channel the wild magic without letting it overwhelm her humanity. "Your hybrid form is unique," he explained as she practiced shifting between states. "Most who attempt to bridge both worlds lose themselves to one side or the other. But you maintain balance." "Maybe because I have nothing to lose," Sarah said, examining her clawed hands. "I was already between worlds. This just made it official." "Or maybe," Kieran said thoughtfully, "you were always meant for this. The poisoning that severed your wolf. Perhaps it was preparation, not destruction." Sarah wasn't sure she believed in destiny, but she couldn't deny that her new form felt right in a way nothing else ever had. She was powerful, capable, and for the first time since the poisoning, She felt complete. You should return to the stronghold, Kieran said eventually. Your high alpha will be wondering about you, and you need to establish the terms of your guardianship with the council. Sarah nodded, though part of her was reluctant to leave. Here in the wild forest, she didn't have to explain herself or face judgment. But she'd made a promise to bridge both worlds, and that meant returning to civilization. She made her way back through the tunnel, her enhanced senses picking up every scent and sound. When she emerged into the stronghold, dawn was breaking again. Another full night had passed. Guards immediately surrounded her, weapons drawn, clearly alarmed by her transformed appearance. Stand down, came the high alpha's voice. He strode into the corridor, and Sarah's breath caught at the sight of him. Something about her new form made her hyper-aware of him. His scent, his presence, the raw power he radiated. The phantom mate bond sensation flared so strongly she nearly staggered. Let her through, the high alpha commanded. The guards reluctantly parted. He led her to his private study, a room she hadn't seen before. It was lined with books and maps, a warrior's workspace rather than a politician's. Show me, he said once the door closed behind them. Sarah shifted fully into her hybrid form. Wolf ears, claws, enhanced musculature, silver fur rippling across her arms and shoulders. She stood taller like this, stronger, no longer small and afraid. The high alpha circled her slowly, his amber eyes taking in every detail. Remarkable, he murmured. You're not diminished by the transformation. You're amplified. It's not what I expected, Sarah admitted. But it feels right. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. You sacrificed your chance at a normal life. For my sisters. For people you barely know. They deserve to choose their own path, Sarah said. And now they can. And what about you? He asked, his voice dropping to something intimate, dangerous. What path do you choose now? Sarah met his gaze directly. I don't know yet. I'm tied to the wild court as a guardian, but I'm not imprisoned there. I can live wherever I want, as long as I return regularly to maintain the balance. Stay here, the high alpha said immediately. At the stronghold. You've proven yourself invaluable. And, he stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. And, Sarah prompted. And I find I don't want you to leave, he admitted. The confession hung between them, weighted with implications neither was ready to fully explore. The phantom mate bond pulsed insistently, and Sarah wondered if he felt it too. I need to report to the council, she said, stepping back to create distance. I fulfilled my bargain. Your sisters are free. I should receive my freedom and the favor I was promised. Something flickered across the high alpha's face, disappointment perhaps. But he nodded. Of course. The council convenes at noon. I'll present your case myself. The hours until the meeting felt both endless and far too brief. Sarah spent them with the freed prisoners, learning more about the wild court's history and the nature of wild magic. Marcus was particularly helpful, sharing everything he'd observed during his captivity. The wild magic isn't evil, he explained. It's just raw, unfiltered power. Like a river, it can sustain life or destroy it, depending on how you interact with it. You've essentially become a dam, controlling the flow. That's a lot of responsibility, Sarah said. Yes, Marcus agreed. But I can't think of anyone better suited for it. You've already proven you won't abuse the power. When noon arrived, Sarah made her way to the council chamber. It was filled with alphas from various packs, all eyeing her transformed appearance with varying degrees of suspicion and fascination. The high alpha stood before his throne, looking every inch the powerful leader. This woman, he announced, has solved the mystery that plagued my family for months. She ventured into the wild court, negotiated the release of prisoners, and freed my sisters from their compulsion. She has earned her freedom and the favor promised to those who succeeded. She's also bonded with wild magic, one of the council members, a grizzled alpha with silver in his beard, pointed out. That makes her dangerous, unpredictable. That makes her valuable, the high alpha countered. She can serve as a liaison between the civilized packs and the wild court, a bridge that prevents future conflicts, or a doorway that lets the wild magic infiltrate our territories, another alpha argued. The debate raged for hours, with some alphas calling for Sarah to be imprisoned or executed, while others saw the potential in her new role. Through it all, Sarah remained silent, letting them argue over her fate as if she weren't standing right there. Finally, The High Alpha's voice cut through the noise. Enough. Serafina has fulfilled her bargain. She is granted freedom to go where she pleases. As for the favor, he turned to her. What is it you want? Sarah had thought long and hard about this moment. She could ask for anything, wealth, status, a territory of her own. But there was only one thing she truly wanted. I want my name cleared, she said. I was accused of attacking a child in my birth pack. I want an investigation into what really happened, and I want my exile reversed. Done, the High Alpha said without hesitation. I'll send investigators to Crescent Moon Pack immediately. If you're innocent, and I believe you are, your name will be cleared and your standing restored. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. Is that all? The High Alpha asked, and there was something in his tone that suggested he'd hoped she would ask for more. Sarah hesitated. There was more she wanted, answers about the phantom mate bond, understanding of what she was becoming, perhaps even a place where she truly belonged. But those weren't things that could be granted by council decree. That's all, she said. The council adjourned, and the alphas dispersed, still muttering about the unprecedented situation. Sarah found herself alone in the great hall once more, standing before the moon tree. You're free to go. The High Alpha's voice came from behind her. Free to live wherever you choose, do whatever you want. Why do you look so lost? Sarah traced her fingers over the moon tree's bark. Because for the first time in 5 years, I have choices, and I don't know which one to make. The High Alpha moved to stand beside her. What are your options? Return to Crescent Moon Pack once my name is cleared, Sarah said. Try to reclaim my place there, though I'm not sure I'd be welcome even without the accusation hanging over me. What else? He prompted. Stay here. Serve as guardian and liaison. Build a new life in a place where no one knew me before I was broken. And the third option? The High Alpha asked. Sarah looked at him in surprise. How did you know there was a third? Because you listed 2 reasonable choices but still look uncertain, he said. Which means there's something else you're considering. Sarah took a breath. Go to the Wild Court. Live on the boundary between worlds. Fully embracing what I've become rather than trying to fit into either civilization or wilderness. That's the option that tempts you most, the High Alpha observed. I can see it in your eyes. Maybe, Sarah admitted. But it also feels like running away. They stood in silence for a moment, the moon tree's soft glow washing over them. I never told you my name, the High Alpha said suddenly. Sarah blinked at the subject change. No, you didn't. Darius, he said. My name is Darius. Why tell me now? Sarah asked. Because I'm tired of being just High Alpha, or brother, or leader, he said. And because I want you to know me as a person, not just a title. Before you make your choice about where to go. Sarah's heart raced. Darius, she tested the name, and saw something flash in his eyes. Serafina, he replied, and the phantom mate bond sensation exploded between them with such intensity that they both gasped. You feel it too, Sarah breathed. The bond. But that's impossible. I'm broken. I can't form mate bonds. You were broken, Darius corrected. But now you're something new. Something the old rules don't account for. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and placed his hand over her heart. The moment he touched her, Sarah felt the phantom sensation solidify into something real, tangible, undeniable. The mate bond snapped into place. Not a normal bond. This was wild and civilized, broken and whole, something entirely unique. It connected them not despite her transformation, but because of it. How? Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. I don't know, Darius admitted, his own voice rough with emotion. But I've felt it since the moment you entered my hall. I thought I was imagining it, that it was impossible. But it's real. You're my mate, Serafina. And you're mine, she said, the truth of it settling into her bones. They stood there, foreheads pressed together, the mate bond humming between them like a living thing. For the first time in 5 years, Sarah felt truly whole. Not because her wolf had been restored, but because she'd found something better. Something uniquely hers. Stay, Darius said again, but this time it wasn't a command. It was a plea. Not as my subject or my guardian, but as my mate, my equal, my partner. Sarah pulled back to look at him properly. Your council won't like it. Your pack will question my suitability. There will be challenges and complications. Let them come, Darius said fiercely. You're worth fighting for. Sarah smiled, and it was the first truly joyful expression she'd worn in years. Then I guess I'm staying. Chapter 9. The news of the High Alpha's mate bond spread through the stronghold like wildfire. By the time Sarah woke the next morning, in her own chambers, not Darius's, as propriety demanded until a formal ceremony, the entire compound was buzzing with gossip. Some were supportive, seeing her unique nature as a gift from the moon goddess. Others were horrified, believing she would corrupt the bloodline with wild magic. And still others were simply confused about how a broken wolf could bond at all. Sarah dressed carefully in clothes provided by Darius's sisters, who had insisted on helping her prepare for the day ahead. They'd transformed from pale, dying creatures into vibrant young women overnight, their gratitude towards Sarah evident in every gesture. "The council will challenge this," Isla warned as she braided Sarah's hair. "They'll claim the bond is false, that it's wild magic trickery." "Let them," Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. "The bond is real. Anyone who can sense such things will feel its truth." "Still," Mara added, "you should be prepared for political maneuvering. Some of the other packs had daughters they hoped Darius would choose as mate. You've disrupted a lot of carefully laid plans." Sarah hadn't considered that. She'd been so focused on survival and solving the mystery that she hadn't thought about the larger implications of bonding with the most powerful alpha in the region. "What do I need to know?" she asked. The sisters spent the next hour educating her on pack politics, alliance structures, and the complex web of expectations surrounding a high alpha's mate. By the time they finished, Sarah's head was spinning. "Don't let it overwhelm you," the youngest sister, Lyra, said gently. "Darius chose you because of who you are, not despite it. Trust in that." Sarah met Darius in his study shortly after. He looked as though he hadn't slept, papers and maps scattered across his desk. "The investigators returned from Crescent Moon Pack," he said without preamble. "You were right. They found evidence of rogue activity in the area where the child was attacked. Your scent was planted deliberately, probably by cloth taken from your cabin." Relief and anger warred in Sarah's chest. "Who did it?" "The trail suggests your stepmother's involvement," Darius said carefully, "though proving it definitively will be difficult. She's well connected within your birth pack." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. Even now, even after everything, Lionel was still trying to destroy her. "Your alpha has agreed to lift the banishment," Darius continued. "Your name is cleared. You're free to return if you wish." "I don't wish," Sarah said firmly. "I made my choice. I'm staying here." Something in Darius's expression softened. "Even knowing what you'll face? The challenges, the political maneuvering, the whispers." "I've faced worse," Sarah said. "And this time I won't face it alone." Darius moved around the desk and pulled her into an embrace. The mate bond hummed contentedly between them, settling her nerves. "There's something else you should know," he said against her hair. "The moon tree is dying." Sarah pulled back sharply. "What?" "It's been fading for months," Darius admitted. "Ever since my sisters began visiting the wild court. I think the wild magic was draining it, using it as a conduit to reach into this realm." Sarah's mind raced. She turned and ran from the study, Darius following close behind. They reached the great hall to find exactly what she feared. The moon tree's silver bark had dulled to gray, and its luminous leaves were falling like tears. "No," Sarah whispered, approaching the tree with her hand outstretched. The moment she touched it, she understood. The tree wasn't just dying, it was transforming. The wild magic she carried was bleeding into it, changing its fundamental nature. "It's not death," she said, relief flooding through her. "It's evolution. The tree is adapting to bridge both worlds, just like I did." "Are you certain?" Darius asked, his voice tight with worry. "Feel it," Sarah said, guiding his hand to the bark beside hers. Together, they felt the tree's heartbeat shift from the steady pulse of civilized magic to something more complex. Wild and tame, chaotic and ordered, dancing between extremes in perfect balance. "It's becoming a threshold," Darius breathed. "Like you." "Exactly," Sarah said. "The wild magic isn't destroying it. It's making it stronger, more adaptable." As if in response to their realization, the tree began to shimmer. New growth burst from its branches. Leaves of both silver and deep green, fruit that glowed with mixed light. The bark regained its luster, but now it bore patterns that seemed to shift and flow like water. "Remarkable," came a voice from the hall's entrance. Kieran stood there, his wild eyes taking in the transformed tree with approval. "The threshold extends into your realm now. Well done, Guardian." "What are you doing here?" Darius demanded, moving protectively in front of Sarah. Relax, High Alpha, Kieran said with amusement. I'm here as an ambassador, not an invader. The Wild Court wishes to establish formal relations with the civilized Pax. And who better to negotiate than the guardian who bridges both worlds? Sarah stepped around Darius. What kind of relations? Trade routes, hunting boundaries, mutual defense pacts, Kieran listed. The wild magic grows restless when confined. But with proper channels for interaction, we can coexist peacefully. This is your doing, Darius accused, looking at Sarah. You planned this. I saw an opportunity, Sarah admitted. The Wild Court isn't evil. They're just operating under different rules. If we can establish communication, we can prevent future conflicts. Darius looked between her and Kieran, his expression calculating. Finally, he nodded. Very well. We'll convene the council to discuss terms. But Kieran, you set one foot wrong, threaten one pack member, and political alliance be damned, I'll tear you apart myself. Kieran's grin was sharp. I'd expect nothing less, High Alpha. The negotiations took days. Council members argued, postured, and debated every detail of the proposed alliance. But slowly, painfully, agreements were reached. Hunting territories were divided, trade goods identified, and protocols established for handling disputes. Through it all, Sarah served as mediator, using her unique position to translate between the wild and civilized perspectives. She'd found her purpose, she realized, not just as a guardian of magical boundaries, but as a bridge between cultures that had been at odds for generations. On the final night of negotiations, as the last documents were being signed, Darius found Sarah standing before the transformed moon tree. You've changed everything, he said quietly. In just days, you've reshaped centuries of tradition and conflict. I had help, Sarah said. Your sisters, the freed prisoners, even Kieran in his way. Still, Darius said, moving to stand beside her. You're extraordinary, Seraphina. I knew at the moment you walked into my hall, willing to risk everything for strangers. Sarah leaned against him, feeling the mate bond pulse warmly. What happens now? Now, Darius said. We formalize our bond before the Pax. Make you officially my mate and Luna of the Council territories. Luna, Sarah repeated, testing the title. That's a lot of responsibility. You've already proven you can handle it, Darius assured her. But there's something I need to know first. Are you truly happy here? Or are you staying out of obligation to the bond? Sarah turned to face him fully. The bond made the choice easier, but it's not why I'm staying. I'm staying because for the first time in my life, I feel like I belong. Not despite being different, but because of it. I found my place, Darius. And it's with you. His kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promise. When they broke apart, Sarah noticed they weren't alone. His sisters had gathered at the hall's entrance, watching with approval. Tomorrow, Isla called out, we begin preparations for the bonding ceremony. And fair warning, we're going to make it spectacular. Sarah laughed, the sound echoing through the great hall. For someone who'd spent years in shadows, the thought of a public celebration should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only anticipation. She'd been broken, yes. But in breaking, she discovered she could be remade into something stronger, something new, something uniquely herself. And that was worth celebrating. Chapter 10. The bonding ceremony was set for the next full moon. A traditional choice that carried symbolic weight. Sarah would be presented not just as Darius's mate, but as Luna of the Council territories and Guardian of the Threshold. 3 titles, 3 roles, 1 woman. The days leading up to the ceremony passed in a blur of preparations. Darius's sisters took charge of organizing the event, turning the stronghold into a hub of activity. Seamstresses arrived to create Sarah's ceremonial gown. Pack representatives came bearing gifts and pledges of loyalty. And even Kieran sent an envoy with a crystal from the Heartstone as a wedding present. But amid all the celebration, Sarah found herself drawn repeatedly to the transformed moon tree. It had become her anchor, a reminder of what she'd overcome and what she'd become. Nervous, Marcus asked one evening, finding her there as usual. Terrified, Sarah admitted. What if I'm not ready for this? What if I fail as Luna? You won't, Marcus said with certainty. You've already proven yourself in ways most Lunas never have to. You walked into the Wild Court and walked out victorious. You negotiated peace between enemies. You saved 5 she-wolves from slow death. If that doesn't qualify you, nothing does. But I'm still learning pack politics, Sarah protested. I don't know all the traditions, the protocols. Neither did any Luna on her first day, Marcus interrupted gently. You'll learn, and you have Darius and his sisters to guide you. You're not alone in this, Serafina. The words settled something in her chest. She'd spent so long being alone that she'd forgotten what it meant to have support, to have people who genuinely cared about her success. The night before the ceremony, Sarah couldn't sleep. She paced her chambers until finally giving up and making her way to the gardens. The full moon hung heavy in the sky, casting silver light across the stronghold. She found Darius already there, standing beneath the stars with his face tilted skyward. Couldn't sleep either? She asked. He turned, a smile softening his usually stern features. Too much anticipation. Tomorrow you become mine officially. No more propriety keeping us in separate chambers. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. They'd been careful to maintain proper boundaries despite the mate bond, waiting for the ceremony to formalize their union. But tomorrow, that waiting would end. Are you ready for this? Darius asked, echoing her own doubts. The scrutiny, the expectations, the weight of leadership? I don't know, Sarah said honestly, but I'm willing to try. With you. Darius pulled her close, and they stood together under the moonlight, the mate bond humming contentedly between them. There's something I need to tell you, he said quietly, about the moon tree and my family's history. Sarah pulled back to look at him. What is it? My great-grandmother, the one who planted the tree. She was like you. Not broken, but different. She could walk between the spirit realm and the physical world, serving as a bridge between the living and the dead. Sarah's breath caught. You knew? All this time, you knew someone like me existed in your lineage. I suspected, Darius admitted. When I felt the mate bond forming with you, despite your broken status, I remembered her story. She bonded with my great-grandfather even though everyone said it was impossible. The moon tree was her gift to our family, a way to maintain balance between worlds. And now it's transforming because of me, Sarah said, understanding dawning. Adapting to bridge the wild and civilized realms instead of the spirit and physical. Exactly, Darius said. You're not an aberration, Serafina. You're a continuation of something ancient and powerful in my bloodline. That's why the mate bond could form. You're exactly what our family has always needed. Tears stung Sarah's eyes. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I wanted you to choose me for who I am, not because of destiny or prophecy or family history, Darius said. I wanted you to stay because you wanted to, not because you felt obligated to fulfill some ancient role. Sarah kissed him then, pouring all her emotion into the connection. When they broke apart, she said, I did choose you, and I'd choose you again, prophecy or not. They stayed in the gardens until dawn, talking about their future, their hopes, their fears. By the time the sun rose, Sarah felt ready to face whatever the ceremony would bring. The great hall was transformed for the occasion. The moon tree stood at the center, now fully in its new form. Branches that seemed to shift between silver and green, bearing fruit that glowed with mixed light. Wolves from dozens of packs filled the space, along with a delegation from the wild court led by Kieran himself. Sarah stood at the hall's entrance in her ceremonial gown, a creation of silver and deep green that echoed the moon tree's transformation. Her hybrid form was on full display, no longer hidden or apologized for. Wolf ears rose from her hair, which the sisters had woven with moonstones. Her claws were filed but visible, a reminder of her unique nature. The ceremony began with traditional pack rites, declarations of loyalty, exchanges of symbolic gifts, and the formal presentation of Sarah to the assembled wolves. Then came the bonding ritual itself. Darius stood before the moon tree, magnificent in his ceremonial robes. When Sarah joined him, the mate bond flared so brightly that several pack members gasped, feeling its power even from a distance. Before the moon and the assembled packs, the elder conducting the ceremony announced, we witnessed the bonding of Darius, High Alpha of the Council Territories, and Serafina, Guardian of the Threshold. They spoke their vows, not the traditional words, but ones they'd written themselves. Promises of partnership, equality, mutual support through whatever challenges lay ahead. When the elder invited them to seal the bond, Darius cupped Sarah's face gently. Ready to become Luna? Ready to become yours, Sarah corrected and kissed him. The mate bond exploded outward, washing over the assembled wolves with tangible force. It carried the unique signature of their connection. Wild and civilized, broken and whole, ancient and new. Several wolves shifted involuntarily in response to the power, while others simply stood in awed silence. When they broke apart, the moon tree's branches had burst into full bloom, flowers of silver and emerald cascading like a waterfall. The scent filled the hall, wild honeysuckle and cultivated roses, a perfect blend of both worlds. "I present Luna Serafina," the elder announced, guardian of the threshold, bridge between worlds, and mate of the High Alpha. The hall erupted in howls of approval. Even Kieran joined in, his wild voice blending with the civilized pack's chorus. The celebration lasted long into the night. Sarah danced with Darius, with his sisters, with Marcus and the other freed prisoners. She accepted congratulations from wolves who'd initially been skeptical, and listened to proposals for how her unique position could benefit the territories. But the moment she treasured most came near midnight, when a messenger arrived from Crescent Moon Pack. "Luna Serafina," the young wolf said, bowing deeply. "I bring word from your birth pack. Your stepmother Lyanna has been stripped of her rank for her crimes against you. Your father requests your forgiveness and hopes you might visit soon." Sarah felt a complex mix of emotions, vindication, sadness, and surprisingly pity. Lyanna had spent so much energy trying to destroy her, only to destroy herself in the end. "Tell my father I forgive him," she said quietly. "But I won't be returning to Crescent Moon Pack. My place is here now, with my mate and my new family." The messenger nodded and withdrew. Darius appeared at Sarah's side, having overheard the exchange. "No regrets?" he asked. "None," Sarah said firmly. "I'm exactly where I belong." As the celebration continued around them, Darius led Sarah to a balcony overlooking the stronghold. The full moon hung above them, blessing their union. "What are you thinking?" Darius asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "That 5 years ago, I thought my life was over," Sarah said. "I thought being broken meant I'd never be whole again, never find my place, never be loved. And now," Darius prompted, "now I know that sometimes you have to break to become something better," Sarah said, turning in his arms to face him. "I'm not the wolf I was supposed to be. I'm something entirely new. Something stronger. Something perfect," Darius murmured, kissing her forehead. "My perfect mate. My Luna. My Serafina." Below them, the transformed moon tree glowed with mixed light. Wild and civilized, chaotic and ordered, broken and whole. It stood as a testament to what could be created when two worlds found balance. And above it all, the moon shone down on a woman who'd been broken, then remade, then finally gloriously found where she belonged. In the days that followed, Sarah settled into her role as Luna with surprising ease. She established regular meetings with the Wild Court, created protocols for wolves who felt called to wildness but wanted to maintain pack connections, and began training others who might one day serve as threshold guardians. Her relationship with Darius deepened beyond the mate bond into true partnership. They governed together, hunted together, and slowly built the life they both deserved. 6 months after the bonding ceremony, as Sarah stood before the moon tree reviewing reports from various territories, she felt a familiar stirring in the hollow space inside her. But this time, it wasn't the wild thing calling. It was something new, something growing, a future taking root. She placed her hand over her abdomen, feeling the first flutter of life. A pup that would be born of both wild and civilized magic, carrying the legacy of bridging worlds. Darius found her there, tears streaming down her face, and understood immediately. "A pup," he breathed. "A pup," Sarah confirmed. "Our pup." He gathered her into his arms, and they stood together before the tree that had witnessed their transformation, their bonding, and now the promise of their future. Sarah had been broken once, had been severed from her wolf, cast out by her pack, accused of crimes she didn't commit. She'd walked through darkness and emerged into something entirely new. And now, standing in her mate's arms with new life growing inside her, she understood the truth her mother had tried to teach her all those years ago. Strength doesn't matter. Loyalty doesn't matter. What matters is the courage to keep going when everything breaks, to rebuild yourself into something stronger, and to never stop believing that wholeness can take many forms. Sarah was no longer broken. She was complete. Epilogue. Years later, a young wolf with silver-green eyes and fur that shifted between states would ask her mother about the scars on her wrist. "What are those from, Mama?" And Sarah would tell her daughter the truth. About being broken, about being remade, about finding strength in the spaces where things had shattered. Sometimes, she would say, the most beautiful things are born from broken pieces. Her daughter would grow up to become the first true threshold guardian trained from birth, able to walk between wild and civilized with perfect ease. She would have siblings, some who shifted traditionally, others who bore hybrid forms, all of them cherished for their unique natures. And the moon tree would continue to grow, its branches spreading wider each year, sheltering a family that had learned the most important lesson of all. Wholeness isn't about being unbroken. It's about embracing every crack, every scar, every transformation, and finding strength in what makes you different. The broken one had become the Luna, and her legacy would echo through generations. The end.